What's one of the most critical and honestly one of the most misunderstood skills for any project leader? It's got to be appraising team performance. But hey, this isn't about just ticking boxes or filling out some HR form. It's about getting a really clear picture of how your team is actually doing, so you can help them and the project get to the finish line successfully.
So, let's start with a big question. Can you really lead a top-notch team just based on a hunch? I mean, gut feelings have their place, for sure. But if you rely on them completely, that can be a pretty big gamble. To really, truly support and elevate your team, you need something more solid. You need objective, clear-eyed data. And that's exactly where a smart approach to performance appraisals comes in.
All right, so here's our game plan for this explainer. We're going to start with the why, the professional mandate behind all this. Then we'll get into decoding the language of KPIs. After that, we'll look at the actual tools you can use, compare the two major philosophies for measurement, predictive and agile, and finally, we'll wrap up with the most important piece of the puzzle, the human factor.
Okay, let's dive right in with the most basic question of all. Why even bother with formal appraisals? It's so easy to see it as just more paperwork, right? But the truth is, it's absolutely foundational to doing project management well.
And look, here's the kicker, and this comes straight from the guidelines for the project management professional, the PMP. This isn't just a suggestion, it is a core task for any project leader. The whole point isn't to judge people, it's to support them. You're measuring performance against clear indicators that everyone's agreed on. It's really about development, not about discipline.
So that phrase from the PMP guidelines, key performance indicators, that's our anchor here. But what on earth are KPIs, really? Let's break it down.
A KPI, at its heart, is just a measurable value. It shows you how effectively you're hitting your main goals. Now, the magic word here is quantifiable. We're trying to move away from those vague feelings like, yeah, I think we're doing okay, and toward real data that actually tells us a story.
Now, KPIs basically come in two essential flavors. The ones we talk about most are lagging indicators. Think of these like looking in the rearview mirror. They tell you what's already happened, like how many bugs were in the last release. But the real power, that often comes from leading indicators. These are like your headlights, showing you the road ahead. For instance, tracking the number of training hours your team is putting in could predict a drop in bugs down the line. A really good system needs both.
And we can measure so much more than just the obvious stuff like time and money. We can track technical stuff like how fast a transaction processes. We can measure how much work is getting done, like throughput. And just as important, we can track the human side of things. Team morale, how cohesive the group is, even how engaged our stakeholders are. This gives you that full 360-degree view of project health.
So how do we actually go about collecting all this data? Well, that's where the manager's toolkit comes into play. There are some really specific assessments we can use to get the insights we're looking for.
You can think about performance through three different lenses. First, individual assessments. These help us understand what makes each person tick, their strengths, their weaknesses. Then, you've got team assessments, which look at how the team is working together as a single unit. Are they collaborating well? And finally, you have the project performance appraisals, which often focus on how well an individual is handling their specific responsibilities on this project.
And this brings us to a super important principle from the PMBOK guide. These assessments have to be ongoing. This is not a once-a-year thing. It's a continuous loop of observing, acting, and improving, all designed to make the team stronger in real time by tackling issues as soon as they pop up.
Now, this is where it gets really interesting, because how we measure performance isn't a one-size-fits-all kind of deal. The whole approach can change dramatically depending on if you're in a predictive, plan-driven world or a more adaptive, agile one.
This slide really just nails the fundamental difference. Predictive projects are kind of like a train on a fixed track. Success is all about how closely you stick to that original schedule and budget. But agile projects? They're more like rafting down a river. The focus isn't on a fixed plan, but on the team's ability to navigate the currents and consistently deliver value along the way.
So a classic predictive metric is the Schedule Performance Index, or SPI. Put simply, it's a ratio that compares the value of the work you've actually done to the value of the work you plan to have done by now. If you get a score of 1, you're perfect. If it's below 1, you're running behind schedule. If it's above 1, hey, you're ahead of the game.
Now contrast that with an agile metric like velocity. This isn't about comparing your progress to some master plan from 6 months ago. Nope. This is a measure of how much finished, accepted work the team got done in their last work cycle, like a 2-week sprint.
It measures the team's actual, real-world capacity to deliver.
So if you boil it all down, here's the crucial point. Predictive methods lean heavily on a detailed upfront plan and then measure everything against it. Agile, on the other hand, uses recent real-world data, like that velocity we just talked about, to make reliable predictions for the near future. It's kind of like the difference between using a detailed paper map versus a GPS that's constantly rerouting based on live traffic.
All of this data, all these KPIs and charts, it all leads us to the most important part of this whole discussion. Because the numbers themselves, they aren't the goal. They're just tools to help us with the human side of leadership.
You know, the most powerful performance indicators are often the ones that measure the health of the team itself. Are people learning new things and improving their skills? Is the team getting tighter, more cohesive? Are they sharing information openly? Is turnover low and morale high? These are the real leading indicators of long-term, sustainable success.
And that's really the whole point. The data isn't there for you to micromanage people or to hand out grades. It's for servant leadership. It's there to help you see where the team is getting stuck so you can clear the way for them. It shows you where they're killing it so you can recognize their growth. The metrics are there to serve the team, not the other way around.
And that brings us to the one single most important question you should ask yourself. When you look at all your performance data, what are you seeing? Is it a report card for judging what's already happened, or is it a compass that helps you navigate what's next? The best leaders, they always choose the compass. Thanks for joining me.